Maybe I'm being a conspiracy theorist. I don't know. I found my connection. I found my connection. It's Monday. No, it's not. It is Thursday. The story is so raw. It's so raw and real and messy. It's all connected. It's all connected. Something's happening. Any guys listening, take notes, take notes. This is what we want to hear. What's up, people? We're doing a thing, we're starting a thing. Is anybody else super stressed out about your library holds? Because I am. Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, only 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I thought it was 6. Awesome. I have 6 books right now, 6 audiobooks on hold from Libby in my library. I'm stressed out because I want to get to them, but I never do, and then I return them, and then I have to wait for them again and put them back on hold, and it's just like this toxic cycle that I am over right now. So I'm going to start a vlog where I'm just going to read all 5 of these books. I'm going to flush it out, start clean, start over, and then I can read other things. So here's what I'm reading. I'm already started on the one that's due the soonest, which is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabriel Zevin. Heard so many good things about this book. 36% into that right now. I'm also going to be reading T. Kingfisher's House with Good Bones. This one I was interested in. I've never read anything from this author, but I don't know, something about this cover turns me off. That's due in 6 days. Also have Part of Your World, Abby Jimenez. This one I've been meaning to read for months now, so it's about time. And then we have Death in Her Hands, Ottessa Moshfegh. And lastly, We Keep the Dead Close. That one I have, it's due in 19 days, and it's the longest. It's a 16-hour, and that is a true crime case. I actually have a physical copy of that as well. So maybe I'll kind of intersperse that one in between these other ones. These are just like all over genre-wise. Looks like horror, romance. Don't even know what contemporary romance. I don't know what Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow is. Death in Her Hands. I don't know what that is either. Probably some weird ass Ottessa Moshfegh shit. And then true crime. So yeah, let's do it. I'm just about halfway through with Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow. And I just have to stop and say that I have come to tears at least 4 or 5 times over nothing, but over everything. And I think that's what this book is capturing so well. It's just like the human experience and the human frailties and human connection, relationships. It's really, really capturing that for me, and I don't know, I just feel very connected. I haven't even told you what it's about yet. Okay, so it's the next day. I am making lunch here, making little caprese tostadas. So I'm going to try to update you on Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow while I do this. I finished it. I finished it yesterday, and I have so many feelings and so many thoughts, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to articulate them the way that I want to, but I spent some time going over reviews, trying to settle into my rating and my critique and my review of this book. So, let's put that right there for reference. Okay, so first of all, what I want y'all to understand is that this is not a love story. I mean, that's wrong. Scratch that. It is a love story. It's not a romance. But it is absolutely a love story about humanity. Boys! Human interaction, human relationships. Like I said before, I spent a lot of time just really deep in my feelings as I was reading this. Hi, puppies. Oh, it just hit me in so many deep places on a visceral level. Rip, no, this is not for you. but at the same time, I definitely have some critiques about it. So I honestly don't know what I'm going to rate this. I suppose I should probably tell y'all what it's about. So we're following Sam and Sadie, and they grew up together. They came together in like an odd circumstance when Sam was in the hospital, and they bonded over gaming when they were just very young. They ended up having a fallout, but then as college students, they meet back up. They decide they want to make this video game together, and so they do. And the video game is a huge success, and their lives spread out from there. This spans over 30 years, so it's a huge concept piece. For me, I was really impressed by how Gabriel Zevin was able to pick and prod which moments over this ginormously scanning, over this vast lifetime, to be able to pick which moments are important in those characters' lives and which moments are going to make the reader connect to them. So I totally understand why this was a finalist for the Goodreads, or actually it was the winner, I think, of contemporary fiction for Goodreads Choice Awards. Sam and Sadie, they feel like real people. They feel like very real people. And for that reason, I think some people don't enjoy this because there are times when we don't support them. There are times when they make terrible decisions. There are times when, they're selfish or they're being unreasonable. And I think a lot of people are kind of annoyed by that. But to me, that just points to human nature. That points to this being a real fleshed out human character. And I love that about this. Now, also, there's a lot of focus on the gaming aspect. I'm not a gamer, but I happened to love that aspect of it. In fact, I think that might have been my favorite element because the games that they come up with they sound like books of their own, novels of their own, and they kind of are, the way they have their own character arc. And they also talk about like the graphics and things like that, but I was really into that part. One of the games that they make is, I can't remember what it's called, but it's about basically the duality of our lives. And there's kind of two different universes that we follow. This same character actually reminds me of this series, Trial by Fire by Josephine Angelini. It's a YA fantasy, but it's about this girl who, in the real world or in this dimension, in this universe, whatever, she is frail and very broken, and she's sickly all the time. But then when she gets to this other universe, she discovers that the things that make her weak here make her strong there. And so that was kind of, and she's basically a superhero. She's a witch in that universe, in this story, but in their game, she was a superhero. And so I love that concept, and that kind of ties into another part of the story as a whole. We also follow Sam's mom, Anna Lee. There are multiple occasions where they run into other people who are also named Anna Lee, and the circumstances that they are in are kind of reflecting what Anna Lee's life could be or could have been, what Sam's life could be or could have been. And so there's a lot of that made me think about our lives, the choices that we make, where we end up, and if in another universe at some point there is someone else doing exactly what you maybe didn't think you would ever do, or maybe the thing that you wanted to do and never did. And I love that. I love that aspect of it. The story is so raw. It's so raw and real and messy. And so I can see why, if somebody went into this looking for romance or looking just to escape reality, how they may not enjoy this, because this very much immerses you in reality, in the fickleness of reality, sometimes the devastation of reality, sometimes, love, but also all of these different elements that come along with the dynamics of being a human being. And if there was like a spectrum that was, on one side, it was like romanticizing your life. And on the other side, it's like the drama, the shit things that happen in life, the banality of life. I really feel like this does kind of play along the middle of that spectrum in a way that reflects truth. And so that was why I liked this so much. And it did make me tear up so many times. But to give it some critiques, I would say that Like, the ending felt a little unsatisfactory for me. Even though I knew they weren't going to end up together, it just kind of felt like it ended, like it dropped off. And then I almost thought that Gabriel Zevin would have been like a Gen Zer, because this book is extremely woke, but like, which is great. There's representation, there's talk about so many different like ailments, disability, cancer, non-binary representation, LGBT representation in general, all kinds of stuff, which is great. But the fact that it was set in 1980s, 1990s made me feel like it was like this idealistic version of reality, which in a sense is great, but also the complexity and the realness of this is kind of juxtaposed to that. You know what I mean? Like, they do say a lot of things in history that happened, and having grown up, you know, in the 90s, I just didn't feel like anyone around me was that woke at that point. Maybe there were people, I was young, but like, their video game character is non-binary. Maybe that was a thing, I don't know. His dissertation, Sam's dissertation, had something to do with, or one of their dissertations had something to do with generational, cultural things. I can't remember exactly. I wish I had taken better notes. But there's a lot of talk when we're in the 80s, when we're in the 90s, about situations that I feel like are very prevalent today, but that may not have been mentioned back then, and it kind of took me out of the story a little bit because it just didn't feel true to that time for me. Oh, I did see some reviews also that said that she was just using big words for the sake of using big words and that it was pretentious. It is a literary type story, so I'll give it that. I personally didn't think that she overdid it with the big words. There were a few in there that I didn't know, but I actually like that when I'm reading a book, to be able to like look up new words and learn new words. So that for me was fun, but I can see why other people might think it's kind of pretentious or over the top. Yeah, but overall, I really, really loved these characters so much. I loved the realness of them. They are not perfect. They are not. They are real, flawed people. It affected me in so many ways. I appreciate it. I respect it. But at the end of the day, even though I had those moments where I was like tearing up and really connected to these characters, I didn't put this down thinking, oh my God, I have to tell everyone to read this. And that's kind of how I know, like, it's not a 5-star for me, but so many good things in here. So much to talk about. Also, the element of just games in general and play and friendship. Friendship is so important, and it never gets focused on. We never have books that focus on friendship, and I love that. But also just that childhood idea of play. Like, being able to be vulnerable enough with somebody to imagine and play and make worlds of your own, whether it's a video game or just make-believe or what have you. And that's a huge theme of this as well. So yeah, I really, really like it. So I don't know what I'm going to rate this yet, but it was good. So I've started reading A House with Good Bones by Kingfisher. This one, I've never read by this author before. And I'm actually really excited about this one. Off the bat, I am loving the writing style. I am loving our main character. Is her name Sam too? What? Where's my phone? Oh shit, I'm filming with my phone. Damn it, I have notes on there. I think her name was Sam Montgomery. I could be wrong. She is a doctor of bugs. And I'm gonna say it wrong, I think, but I think it's called etymology? Etymology? That could be words. I don't know. You know what I mean. Anyway, she's out and she's going to this dig site where they're going to study these bugs, and whoop, they find a body. Also, she lives with roommates. She's supposed to have been gone for 6 months, and they subletted her room. So she has nowhere to go, so she goes back to her mom's house where she grew up. Also, her grandmother, I think she called her grandma, lived there. And so this house has been in their family for generations. And her mom lives there now. And her and her mom are like besties. They have the same very left-wing political views. They love to drink wine, curl up and watch, British murder mystery. She gets back to mom's house and mom's different. The walls are all painted white. She's put up grandma's photo, like a very problematic Nazi photo on the wall. Her mom always hated that, even though her grandma liked it. And so she's just so confused. She keeps bringing up things about the grandma, and mom's being weird about it. And there's this lady down the street who has a garden that their grandma used to call a witch because she hated her. She thought she was trashy. She thought she had no class. And mom is like avoiding mentioning that. In fact, she's pretending that she didn't hear it and that never happened. She is in denial. And so our main character, she's like, okay, something weird's going on. I'm gonna be staying with mom for a while. Like, you know, I'm just starting to get into it. But first of all, I love this main character because, one, she's fat. I love the fat rep. She has curly hair, which my hair is not curly right now, but if you know my videos, you know my hair is naturally pretty curly. So I feel connected to her off the bat. I love her character voice. She's sarcastic, she's dry, she's intelligent. I could go on and on. Like, I just feel really, really connected to this character. I feel connected to the writing. From the get-go, I was in. This one took me a minute to get into it and to like feel connected to these characters. I immediately, with A House with Good Bones, feel connected to this character, to the writing style, and I'm very excited for this. It's supposed to be a Southern Gothic, and something's going on with her mom. Something is going on with her mom, and it's, I don't know if it's like a haunting story or what, but it certainly seems like the mom wants to be honest with her daughter, but that there are some forces that she doesn't want to overhear her. I'm just excited for this one. I think it's going to be really good. I'm really glad I'm getting into it. I initially didn't pick it up because I just don't connect with this cover. And I never read from this author, so I was just like, you know, but I have been hearing good things. And I recently saw the UK cover of this, and I'm like, why, once again, do you guys get the better covers in UK? Because, like, look at this. This one, I'm not sure I want to read. This one, I absolutely want to pick up, like, immediately. So, yeah, there's that. Anyway, I'm going to eat my lunch. I'll get back to you when I get somewhere with A House with Good Bones. I've been on a caprese kick, and if you're curious, it's just toasted bread, basil, tomato, mozzarella, and then balsamic glaze, salt, pepper. That's it. It's phenomenal. 100% phenomenal. I could eat it for every meal, to be honest. Love it. Okay, to start out, let's talk about the audio narrator. Her name was Mary Robinette Cowell, and I loved and hated her at the same time. When she did the voices of the women, which this story is mostly women, there's really only 2 men in the story, and they're both side characters. It was perfection, especially mixed with this writing, the sass, the sarcasm, the wit, the impersonations, and the women's voice was perfection. But when she did the men's voice, it sounded way, way weird. And now, don't get me wrong, I can't do a man's voice, and I don't know how these narrators do switch voices, switch genders like they do. But Mary, her switch gender voice was not perfection, but I feel like, man, she really, really did a good job overall. As far as this like theme of Southern Gothic, do I like Southern Gothics even? I don't know, because I've been thinking about it, and I'm thinking, I read this one, and I read Such Pretty Flowers last month by K.L. Sarah. Both Southern Gothics, both have a lot to do with like plants and flowers and this like dark magic, maybe, maybe not. And I was like, well, maybe I just don't like this like witchy dark magic stuff because it doesn't have like a system, like a magic system, like a fantasy would. And then I was like, no, but I like magical realism, like Follow Me to Ground, where it's just like this unexplained woman, this otherworldly woman, just can heal people. And that didn't bother me. So I don't know what it is about this like maybe witchy stuff, maybe not, that just doesn't vibe or gel with me. But there's something about that That being said, I really liked this. I had a good time the whole time I was reading this. I thought it was funny, it was witty, it was clever, it was sarcastic, and there were a lot of moments that were just really funny. And this really goes there more so than Such Pretty Flowers, I would say. It takes it to like an extreme. I saw a couple reviews that said they really weren't into this book until the end when it starts heating up and it starts getting wild. I kind of feel the opposite of that. I liked it more at the beginning and less at the end when it started getting wild. Like, yeah, it was fun and just kind of out there and ridiculous. But at the same time, I was like, okay, like I don't believe it because I don't believe in that kind of stuff. So I don't know if it's because it's set in the real world and it's something that could potentially be real, but that I don't really believe. I don't know. It's like, part of me feels like it's a fairy tale or a children's story, and I'm just either too old or too rigid to allow myself to enjoy that kind of thing, and I'm not sure which it is. You coming back? Oh, okay. Oh, there's my boys. I love the boys. I love the boys. That said, I was not like scared by any of this. I really don't ever get scared by books anyway, but it felt more like almost campy to me. Like it felt campy. I don't think that was the intent though. I don't think it was supposed to be campy. I wrote bugs and vultures and roses. Oh my! This is the main imagery of this. Because Sam is an etymologist, she really gets into the bugs and the creatures and the things. And there's a point where she realizes that in Grandma's garden, there are no bugs, not a single one. And it's just a weird thing. And because she's an entomologist and because she's an archaeologist, she starts exploring it. She has a very scientific mind, so she starts making experiments and like seeing where that takes her, and she delves deeper and deeper into what is going on with her mom and her mom's house. I think overall where I'm settling with this is that I really am enjoying the writing from this author. For some reason, I don't know if it was like the covers that she's had in the past or just, I think I heard one bad review about Kingfisher like 2 years ago, and I just never felt motivated to pick up anything she wrote after that. And I feel like I passed judgment, and I should not have, because I really do like the writing style. I think we're going to get along. I'm excited to read her other books, but this Southern Gothic thing, I just don't know that I love it. I don't dislike it, but it didn't leave me feeling like, yes, you know? It's definitely atmospheric, it's definitely vibey, and it's a fun ride. Really like the main character, really like the writing. But that said, I don't see this being a 4-star. I see this being a 3.5-ish, perhaps. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that one. But I would recommend it, and I really liked it. I think it just didn't have any like extra things that took me over the edge. So that's it. We just went out to dinner. It's Thursday night and kind of an impromptu out to dinner. I usually cook, so that was fun. We had sushi. It was really good. And tomorrow's Friday. I spent the majority of the day today thinking it was Friday, and I get off work at 5 on Friday and 6 every other day. So I was really excited until 4:15 when I realized I actually had an hour and 45 minutes left of work instead of 45 minutes, which was just really devastating. But tomorrow's Friday now, so I'm going to start a new book tomorrow. I only have 3 left on my Libby app right now. I'm thinking I might try the romance, Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Depending on how I'm feeling tomorrow, I may do any of them. In Her Hands, the true crime one, I'm not sure. So I'll start that tomorrow, and I'll let you know when I know more. Denver. Denver. Oh my gosh, Rip, why? Is that really necessary? That's so loud and right in my ear. is Maisel! The new season is out in the last season. I'm so sad but so happy. Hey, what's up? It's Sunday. I did not check in with you at all yesterday. My husband and I went with another couple friend of ours to this like city spring thing. There was live music. It was a blast. And then I read an entire book and did not check in with you once. My bad. So we'll talk about that. Also, I just did my roots this morning, so I'm feeling fresh and red and bright and brilliant. So we're good there. So yeah, let's talk about A Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Because I read this entire book, did not stop once to tell you what it was, to tell you about it at all, to give you any updates. My bad. I apologize for that, but here we are. So this is an age gap romance. I know, what? She's reading a romance? What is happening? What is happening? I meant to read this one in February for Valentine's, but I just never got to it. And then everybody was telling me how good it was. And so I'm so happy that I finally got to it. We're following Alexis Montgomery and Daniel Grant. Now, before we get into this, can I tell you, maybe I'm being a conspiracy theorist. I don't know. The first book we read, Tomorrow. Main characters, Sam and Sadie. The second book, A House with Good Bones, also named Sam. Main character named Sam, but female, short for Samantha this time, Samantha Montgomery. A Part of Your World, Alexis and Daniel. Alexis's last name, Montgomery. I feel like it's all connected. It's all connected. Something's happening. What if I could do like a 6 degrees of separation from like all of these books? Or like some way to connect them. That'd be pretty cool. Anyway, it's an age gap romance and we're following these two. Alexis is 37, Daniel is 28. So there's a nice size gap there, but the age gap thing was not part of the conflict. It was really almost like a non-thing, which I actually really like. This is set in Minnesota. Alexis is an ER surgeon and a legacy medical practitioner from a very renowned family. In fact, there has been a Montgomery practicing medicine in the hospital that she works in for the last 125 years. Her parents both worked there, just retired. Her twin brother also worked there. He's just gotten married and ran off to Cambodia, and so she is stuck. And not only that, she's stuck with her emotionally abusive, long-term, newly ex-boyfriend who is the chief of surgery at this hospital. So she has to stay. She has all of this pressure. It's her birthright. She has to stay. And then she also has to like deal with her stupid ex all day. Oh, they also own a house together. So there's that. Then we're following Daniel. Daniel is the mayor of this little, technically a village that is like 2 hours outside of the city where Alexis lives. This town, whatever it is called Wakan. And he has also got his own legacy. His family has been the mayor there for years and years. It's kind of like a technical position, like he does the things that a mayor would do, but their town is so tiny that really it's kind of unofficial. It's like, whatever. Daniel's a really good guy. Off the bat, no red flags. Really love him. He lives on this property behind this like vintage mansion that's been in his family for hundreds of years. He can't afford to live in it though, so he rents it out as like a bed and breakfast. And he runs the bed and breakfast and he lives on the land like in the garage or something. He also does woodworking on the side and he's just all around good guy. Let's talk about the audio narrators, because I know I mentioned that I didn't like, in A House with Good Bones, I loved the narrator voice when she did females, but I did not love it when she did men. And that got me thinking about this because there's two narrators in this and I don't read a whole lot of romance. Narrated by Julia Wayland and Zachary Webber. And they did a fantastic job. So it got me thinking, do romance audiobooks typically have two narrators? Because I feel like if you're a woman and you're listening to a female narrator do the guy parts, it's not going to work as well, and vice versa as well. But also within these separate POVs, there are moments where they're talking to the other person, and so of course the guy narrator has to do the voice of the female and vice versa again. But one thing I noticed when I was listening to both of them is what made it What made it believable to do a different character, a different gender in their own voice was not the depth or the tone of the voice. It was like the timbre. When Zachary Weber was doing Alexis's voice in his point of view, he made it kind of raspy, but it wasn't like he changed. He didn't change, he didn't speak like this because I'm a woman now. He made it in his own voice, and then he just kind of made it like raspy like this. And now I'm thinking that's the secret. That's the secret to switching character voices for narrators. Interesting. An interesting observation, but nonetheless, that really does not relate to my enjoyment of this book. Well, maybe it is. Who knows? One thing I really loved about this was that Jimenez did a really good job of setting up their motives so that when you have this conflict, which of course you know you're going to with a romance, it's going to have that Act 3 conflict. This one really started from the beginning. But it was just like part of your world. Like, he's got a legacy to protect, she's got a legacy to protect. It really doesn't make any sense for either of them to move, and they can't. Not only do they have familial obligations, but they are so grounded in their own places where they live. She has to stay at the hospital. He has to stay there because he's the fucking mayor. So it's like there's no compromise that can make this relationship work. And that felt really believable to me. I hate it when, you know, there's like a miscommunication trope or something like that where you're just like, okay, that could have easily not been a conflict. This clearly was a conflict from the beginning, made total sense, and they really shouldn't have been together. Like I saw how this was going to work out. I saw the path. She was creating a path, and I saw that coming. And even though I did see it coming, it was still so satisfying when it came to fruition because I was just like, oh, finally, I wanted these characters to be together so badly. There are so many Princess Bride references in this book. Oh my God, I love the Princess Bride so much. And that just like caught me by surprise, and then like drew me in, you know, got me on the reel and just reeled me right in, and I could not say no to the Princess Bride banter. Hello. There's also audiobook rep in here. They talk about how much they both love books, and they both read a lot of historical nonfiction, and they're like, hey, that's weird. It's kind of a weird thing that we both read those things. And he's like, yeah, you should listen to audiobooks. He's like, when I'm, you know, doing my chores throughout the day, I listen to audiobooks. He's like, well, next time you get on the 2-hour drive to come see me, pop one in and listen to an audiobook. And she's like, maybe I'll try audiobooks. Love some audiobook rep. Perfection. Cannot go wrong with that for me. The sex. This is the kind of book that I love because it's not smutty. And nothing against smut, if that's what you like. But for me, romance is not about sex. For me, romance is about everything in between, the tension. And so I loved the way that she talked about this tension and worked that into the story, but also like the sexy scenes were sexy, but not for the same reasons as you would get in like a book that's really smutty. One of the things he said to her, or they talked about, they were fooling around or whatever, and she's in her head like thinking, holy shit, he always touches me in the perfect spots. He knows exactly what buttons to push, what to do to just like turn her into butter. And she says, how do you know how to touch me? And he said, because I pay attention to you. How you feel matters to me. That's what every woman wants to hear. Any guys listening, take notes, take notes. This is what we want to hear. He pays attention to her when he touches her and how she reacts, and then he lets that guide him. Hello? This is how it's done. Hello. Gentlemen, listen, please. Loved that. Loved that whole aspect of it. Loved their devotion for each other. I teared up a couple times. It was beautiful. I mean, it's weird because it's like a romance, but it's like everything I want in a romance. So I'm probably going to rate this pretty high. It's feeling like a 5-star. But it's weird because even a 5-star romance for me is not like all-time favorites. It's a 5-star romance. It's not an all-time favorite because romance I don't feel like could be an all-time favorite for me. But I don't know. That's just me. So I finished that and I've started reading We Keep the Dead Close by Becky Cooper. This is my true crime book. I'm 41% into it, surprisingly, because it's like a 14-hour audiobook, and I just started it this morning, so I guess I'm just getting through it pretty quickly. But I've listened to too many true crime podcasts, okay, and I'm super not excited about listening to it. Like, it feels droll to me. It feels like this could have been presented in a podcast and been way more exciting, but I'm here for it. The author is also the narrator of the audiobook, which is great. And then she also went to Harvard, and when she was at Harvard, she heard about this woman who was killed years ago in the 60s. It's kind of this story that's like almost lore at this point when she was in college, because everybody knew about it, and there was a professor there who it was rumored to have killed her, but nobody really, like, he never got arrested. He wasn't even really like a suspect at the time. And so he almost uses that as like, don't fuck with me. And as a way to, like, it almost gives him more clout, more of this like air of authority within the school. And he was also tenured at the time. So she's like, well, did Harvard cover this up? Like, who's covering this up? Why do we not know what's, sorry, Denver's trying to get me to throw his ball. They're both looking at me right now like, is she gonna throw it? Is she gonna throw it? Oh, oh, now I got him worked up. Anyway, she graduates from Harvard. Okay, here's one thing though about the authorial voice in this, is that I feel like it's a little immature. I don't know how old she is when she wrote this. I don't know what's going on. I know she's investigating it, and I'm pretty sure she's gonna be able to pin it on this professor. I don't know how the actual story played out or whatever, but it's been decades and decades since then, since this actually happened when she is in college. And she graduates, and then she's like, I just sat around, I didn't know what to do with myself. I lost motivation and ambition until this story came up about this murder again, and I got back into it. So she ends up going back to Harvard and like sitting in on one of these professor's classes at the beginning of the semester and pretending she's like a student there that's auditing the class. She's like, I felt like I was one of the students. I felt like I was in it until I walked by a window and I saw my reflection looking back at me, and I saw the age on my face and realized I was not a student. And I saw what time had done to me. And I'm like,
bitch, you were 24.
She was 24. This was 2 years after she graduated. I'm like, what kind of time, what has time done to your face in the time from when you were 22 to 24? Boys, all right, no. When you're young, admit that you're young. Be young. Enjoy it. Youth is wasted on the young. And I do think it's a sign of immaturity to say like, oh, I'm so old when you're, in your 20s. But anyway, dogs. Anyway, that's where I'm at with this one. I think it's just fine so far. I'm not obsessed with it. I hope there's like a cool twist in this. I'm not gonna look up the actual case until afterwards, and then I will see how, decide how I feel like her story went. But it is cool that she like went to the same school, and I think the woman that died, and I feel like shit because I can't remember her name right now, but I'll put it up here. She was an archaeology student, which is cool too. I found my connection. I found my connection to A House with Good Bones. Samantha Montgomery was an archaeologist and an entomologist. I think I said that wrong like 14 times. An archaeologist and an entomologist. She would dig holes too. They're all digging holes in the ground. Okay. And so that teacher who she suspects, he's the archaeology teacher. Anyway, I'll get back to you. I have finished We Keep the Dead Close by Becky Cooper, and I have thoughts about it. I don't know how I feel about this because honestly, I listen to a lot of true crime on podcasts, but I don't read a lot of true crime. So I don't have a whole lot to compare it to. This has a lot of accolades. A lot of people love this book, and this, I guess it's not a novel. What is it? A story? I don't know. So I don't think I really got into the discussion about who this is. This is Jane Britton. She was an archaeology student at Harvard. Her dad was, a higher up at Radcliffe, which was basically a girls' school that was associated with Harvard before they allowed women into Harvard. So that's part of the reason why this story is so renowned, because her father at the time had a lot of clout. And so there was a lot of newspaper coverage about this story at the time, but that's also why it's so hard to believe that this was never solved, that he never pushed for it to be solved back when it happened in 1969. Jane was at a friend's apartment, I believe on campus in Cambridge. She went home to her own apartment for the night, and the next day she had an exam that she was studying for and did not show up for. So people went to check on her, her friends went to check on her, and she was found dead. She was killed by blunt force trauma. She was also sexually assaulted, which they did not know until later. But I went on and on about how this professor, how he seemed so guilty and all of that. He was not the killer. He was not. They didn't find the killer until 2018 when they tested the DNA that was found on her body. They were able to find the killer, who was at that point already deceased, so it's kind of unsatisfying, but also there are a lot of things that don't really add up or don't make sense. She was found with red ochre on her body, which is like a red powder, and it's very closely related to some ceremonial death type things in other cultures, things that she may have come in contact with when she was on a dig with her archaeology department, for example. So that turned out to be just random, I guess. Maybe she was fighting with him and somehow got it on her body. We don't really know. There's a lot of unanswered questions. But honestly, when we found out who the killer was, there was still 2.5 hours of this audiobook left. And I was like, what the hell are we going to talk about for another 2.5 hours? I don't understand. So this is about more than just Jane Britton. It is about Jane Britton. It highlights her, but it's also about Becky Cooper, the author. It's also about the abuse of power and the institutional oppression of women in academia. So there's that. There's a lot more to say in here that I did appreciate, but honestly, I was not looking for that with a true crime story, so it kind of took me off guard, I guess. The thing about true crime that I really like is that, well, not the only thing, but one of the things, I suppose, is that we just want to know the truth, right? And the truth, it's a weird thing to even contemplate, because what is true? Okay, say you're on an archaeological dig. Say you are digging, you are turning the soil so many times to try to get to this thing that you think is the truth. But by doing that, are you not affecting that thing? Are you changing it? And how do you know if you're changing it? Because you never see it. It's like Schrodinger's cat. How do you know if you're changing it until you find it, and then you don't know if it's the same as it was before you interrupted or you dug to find out what this thing was? And with that said, is the idea of truth in general so ineffable that it could never truly be unbiased, because of the way emotions cloud our memory, because of the way each person investigating something goes into it with their own biases, unbeknownst to themselves. It's never completely unbiased. And so is the story ever really the truth? I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole here, I understand that, but it got me thinking about those things, which I enjoy. I like kind of contemplating the mysteries of the universe, I suppose you could call it. But with these things, as much as we dig and we dig and we dig and we try to find out what happened and why, we're never really going to be able to explain someone else's behavior. We can understand the situation around it and think about how we might react, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that would motivate that other person to do the same thing. As she's investigating this, she finds more and more people who are suspects for her, and all of which seem like they have the motive, they have the opportunity, and they very well could have done this. And so at this point, the killer's already dead. There's not really much to be said about this. It's solved. Is there any kind of closure for her family? I mean, maybe, but maybe not. After we find out who the killer is, she goes into more things about Harvard and the oppression of women and the kind of scandals that came out with the Me Too movement, which I also appreciated, but I really thought this book was about 200 pages longer than it needed to be. It's just so long. And I was saying at the beginning that it was going so quickly, and then it just started slowing down. So yeah, I think it was fine. I typically don't rate nonfiction unless it is a 5-star for me. This one's not a 5-star, but it was good. I would still recommend it if you're into true crime. I still think my favorite way to consume true crime is podcasts. But no, this isn't even a second. I think I'd rather have a documentary after that and then than the book. But I will keep this one. I'm not going to get rid of it. I like it. Oh, also I discovered as I was listening, I think the best way to consume this would be actually the physical book as opposed to audio, because there are pictures in this throughout that actually were really helpful. And I didn't even notice until like halfway through when I picked it up to start reading in tandem. And yeah, there's just a lot of pictures. Also, the way it's written, it's like not really chapters, but there's just like different titles along the way as you go, and it changes very often. And so I think reading this, you would probably have a better experience than I did listening. So keep that in mind if you're interested in checking this out. Also, Harvard. I didn't put that together before. Harvard. We also have Harvard in tomorrow. So there's another connection. We're going places. We're getting there. It's all coming together. And now I have also started reading the Ottessa Moshfegh book, Death in Her Hands. I'm actually 79% into this one, and I don't know where this is going. I don't know if I'm gonna like this one. I haven't really found a connection to the other books from this one yet, which is kind of disappointing because I feel like I've done so well so far. But her husband was a scientist, so maybe that could fit in with the archaeology. I don't know. It's a stretch. It's a stretch. Hold on now. Let me tell you what this is about. So we're following this woman, Vesta. She's an older lady, and she comes across this note on this random patch of land, and it says, Magda is dead. I didn't kill her. That's the general gist of it, but there's no body to be found, and she becomes obsessed with this. Her husband has passed away from cancer, Walter. Sounds like he was a pretty shitty guy. She has a dog named Charlie, who she absolutely is in love with and who is like her companion. She lives alone on this land that used to be a Girl Scout camp, which is weird. Anyway, she's obsessed with this note, She has created an entire life for Magda and an entire life for the person who wrote the note, and she decides she's going to figure out who killed Magda. But there's no body, there's no evidence, like no one knows if this is even a real thing, and we're just in her head, and she's rambling and incoherent, and as we get farther and farther into the book, she becomes more and more unhinged. And I don't know if I like it. Honestly, like, if there's not like a really big twist here that gets me, then I probably am not going to love this, because I'm just kind of bored with Magda. Like, we know her presumptions about Magda, but also like, why do I care about Magda? Like, I don't care about Magda. But now I'm seeing the direction that it's heading in right now, and it could get interesting with what I've seen so far, so we'll see about that. But Magda has an entire history that Vesta has made up. She's from Belarus. She's got shitty parents with a whole bunch of other kids. She ran away. She got a summer job at McDonald's, where she met Blake, who is the note writer. And Blake lives at home with his mom. He ends up feeling bad for Magda and gets her basically a room in their basement for her to live so she doesn't have to work at McDonald's. And like, she knows Magda's eyeliner that she uses. She knows Magda's parents' name and Blake's parents' name and their job and like all of these things that she's just making up in her mind, and it's just really, really unhinged. And I know we can't trust her because even in the synopsis of this story, we're told that Vesta is an unreliable narrator. And so I'm like, but what's the deal? Like, why can't we trust her? Is this going to go like an Ian Reid We Spread type of direction? Or is this going to go like she's just insane? Because she keeps also mentioning her mind space. She's like, but in my mind space, this happened. And maybe in their mind space, that happened. And I'm like,
Why are you calling it your mind space?
that's kind of weird. So I'm going to hopefully finish this today, and I'll let you know if I love it or hate it. I feel like it's going to be an extreme. A one or the other. So far I'm not having the best of luck with Ottessa and Moshfegh in general. I didn't mind my year of rest and relaxation, but I didn't love it like other people do. So I have a feeling that's probably where I'm going to end up settling with this one, but I don't want to put my cart before the horse, so we will see. It's Monday. No, it's not. It is Thursday. Okay. I finished Death in Her Hands, and I didn't love it, y'all. I feel like it's something that I should love, that I should get, and I don't. And I feel bad about that, but at the same time, I'm like, you know what? It's just not for me. That's okay. Really, like, I get it. I get what is so great about this novel, and I get why it has such high praise. The way it's written doesn't connect with me, and it actually ended up being kind of annoying to me, and I hate to say that, because we're inside Vesta's head, and she is becoming more and more unhinged. She just is. And the way the story ends, like, I don't know, I thought there was going to be a twist in there. I thought there was going to be something with Walter, her husband. Maybe he killed Magda, maybe, you know, she killed him, maybe. I don't know. I thought there was going to be something, but no, it's just this journey of Vesta's disillusionment and her insanity just taking over her rational mind. And so I really think, actually, it reminded me of Electro Boy by Andy Berman, which I actually ended up DNFing at like, well, 86 pages. That's where my bookmark is, 86 pages. And the reason I did not like this is actually a nonfiction about this man and his mania. And it really, really reminded me of Vesta because of the way it was written, and for the same reason I did not like this one, and it was because it was written in that manic state. It's almost like this stream of consciousness from that person's mind, and it made me feel uncomfortable. It made me feel judgment towards this person, which I hate to admit, but it did. And maybe that would have changed if I had finished it. Like I said, I did not finish this, so I really can't have an opinion, but the writing style really reminded me of Vesta from Death in Her Hands. And I get where Ottessa Moshfegh was going with this, and I get why it's so sinister. I found this article that I will link it down below. Death in Her Hands is the work of a writer who is, like Henry James or Vladimir Nabokov, touched by both genius and cruelty. Cruelty, so deplorable in life, is for novelists a seriously underrated virtue. Like a surgeon or a serial killer, Moshfegh flenses her characters and her readers until all that's left is a void. It's the amused contemplation of that void that gives rise to the dark exhilaration of her work, its wayward beauty, its comedy, and its horror. And I completely agree with everything that said. But I just didn't like my time with this. I felt unhinged when I was reading it. And maybe that is proof of the well-written story, you know, because it made me feel things. And maybe I need it to be more spelled out for me. I don't know. I'm trying to be objective in my critique of this, but at the same time, like, if it's just not for you, it's just not for you. And I don't think Ottessa Moshfegh is going to be for me, generally. I feel like she's one of those writers that I should like, that I should enjoy, that is on par with some of the other things that I really like, but for some reason I just don't connect with the writing. I will say, however, that her husband Walter turns out was a doctor, so this takes it full circle back to Part of Your World, where Alexis Montgomery is also a doctor. So we have the connection. We have the full It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia crazed, manic perhaps, board of connections. It is complete. I have found a way to connect every single one of these to another one of these books, which was fun. Just a little something to make it more interesting along the way. Some highlights from this video: Part of Your World, or Part of That World? Part of Your World. Probably my favorite. Tomorrow I really liked as well. Definitely made me feel some things. A House with Good Bones, another one I would definitely recommend. The True Crime by Becky Cooper. I mean, it was fine. I would recommend. Again, I see the merit in that, but it just wasn't for me necessarily. And then the same goes with Death in Her Hands. Maybe it's just not for me, and that's okay. But maybe y'all would love it. So I'm happy to have given you a little bit more information on all of those, hopefully, and you can decide for yourself whether it's something that you want to read or not. And if you have read these, please let me know your opinion down below, especially if it's different than mine. I love to hear it. Also, the Midnight Society Book Club this month is reading The Protege by Jody, Gehrman, and the live show is coming up on the 30th. I'm going to be joined by Sav from Riveting Reads at 6 p.m. Central Time on Sunday the 30th. So for those of you who couldn't make the 2 p.m. Saturday lives, this is your shot, and you still have time to read this. Looking forward to it. I haven't started it yet as of now, so that's probably going to be one of my next books. And yeah, I think that's going to be it for this vlog. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for watching it to the end. If you are still here, I appreciate you. Don't forget that life is short, so read Riley. Cheers and goodbye.